Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, ma ba'd. So now we are in the city of Taif, and if we know the story of Taif, we know that this is one of the places that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam visited. Now this story takes place in a critical moment in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This occurs after the year that is known as the year of sorrow, Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow, the year of sadness, because in one year the Prophet ﷺ lost two key important figures in his lifetime at that time. One was Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and the second was his uncle Abu Talib. And both of them, they provided comfort and refuge to the Prophet ﷺ. In the house, it was Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala. Outside was Abu Talib, who protected him. But what happens now is, after the passing away of those two, the people of Makkah now, they became even more braver and emboldened than before. Anyone and everyone now started attacking and abusing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now we can see the situation was becoming more and more bleak. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam now, he sought to look for help and assistance outside of the city of Makkah. And Taif was one of the closest cities to Makkah, and one of the most prominent ones. This was, we can say, known as one of the resorts for the people of Makkah as well. Many of the prominent Makkans, they had they had property here. You know how people have vacation houses today, those who can afford them. Similarly, they had the same. And as we're walking in these streets, we can see how some of it is old, while others is new. Anyway, the Prophet ﷺ came to the city of Taif, walking in the heat, in the sun. And he had Sayyidina Zayd with him. And their scholars have written as to why they came walking. Why did they not ride their horse or a camel here? And it is said that they came here under they wanted to keep this secret. They didn't want to alert the people of Makkah that they were going now outside of the city of Makkah, because this was a threat to the people of Makkah. If the people of Taif accepted Islam, it was a threat to them, because Taif was a competing place for the people of Makkah. And the reason for that is because one of the main idols of Quraysh that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى Lat, Manat and Uzza are prominent idols that they used to worship. And Lat happened to be in Taif. So Taif was a prominent place. The only thing the people of Taif did not have was they did not have Kaaba. And that was the distinguishing features that Makkah had, because that was the central location, the central place, the Kaaba. So this was a strategic part on the part of the Prophet ﷺ to visit Taif, to invite them to Islam. And if they had become Muslims, it would have been a real challenge to the people of Quraysh. So when he came here, the summary is the people, of course, they rejected the message. Not only did they reject him, the leaders of Taif sent out the young Jahil children to abuse the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we all know the story of how the children pelted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The time here does not permit me to go into the details, but we'll talk about that inshallah. But I urge you to read about it, listen to the lectures about it. So they pelted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much that his feet were soaked with blood, his shoes, his footwear. So he came a little further away from the city of Taif. It is said that he stayed in Taif for 10 days, hoping that someone would listen to his message and accept it. After 10 days, when he started departing the city of Taif, we know that the children and the people of Taif were pelting the Prophet ﷺ. So he comes across a place where he sought rest. He wanted to rest for a little bit. And this happened to be a place or a garden that belonged to two of the people who were pretty prominent. They were Utbah ibn Rabi'a and Shayba ibn Rabi'a. Those two are brothers, and they were prominent leaders of Makkah, and they knew about the Prophet ﷺ, and they knew his message, and they rejected it. But when they saw the Prophet ﷺ in Taif, and in this state where he was rejected, and he is abused, and that he is bleeding, even they had a soft spot in their heart. So what they did was they ordered one of their workers that they had, whose name was Addas. They asked him, they sent their slave or their worker, the servant Addas, with some grapes to present to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he takes the grapes and he takes it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet ﷺ accepted the grapes, and hence we see a lot of that out here. The history of Taif and grapes and the Prophet ﷺ are tied together forever. He accepts the grapes, but before he eats the grapes, he says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Addas was a Christian from the city of Nineveh in Iraq. When he hears Muhammad say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, he said, what is that you said? People here don't say that. What is it that you said? He said, I said the same thing that all of the other, the previous prophets and messengers said. And he inquired him where he's from, and he said he's from the city of Nineveh. So the Prophet ﷺ says, Nineveh, you mean the city where my brother Yunus alayhi salam was sent? And he said yes. And he knew immediately that this was no ordinary person. He knew that this was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the final prophet and messenger. And the hadith tells us, what does he do at Addas? Remember, he's sent only to give him the grapes. So what he does now is he recognizes who he is. He is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the final prophet and messenger. So he immediately starts kissing his face, kissing his blessed head, kissing his hands, and kissing his feet. And these two brothers, they see what is going on here. We sent him just with the grapes, and now he's turned even him against us. So they asked him what happened. He said, Wallahi, Addas says that by God, this man, this person is none other than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He told him, no, he's corrupting you. Don't worry about him. Leave him. And they just tell him that. But what happens is Addas, he becomes a Muslim. Addas, he becomes a Muslim. And this marks the place here where there's a masjid, that is small masjid here that has been built here. You can see now it's marked as a cultural heritage. This is the Masjid of Addas, which marks the place where this incident took place. Addas radiallahu ta'ala anhu ends up becoming the first, according to most of the scholars, the first person in Taif who accepted Islam. And his name, Addas, the grapes, the city of Taif, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are forever going to be mentioned together. Here we see the courtyard of the masjid. The masjid is pretty small. It's very small. And you see groups and groups of people and visitors visiting here. We're gonna go and take a look inside real quick. But this marks the place where we know for certain that the Prophet ﷺ, we know for sure that the Prophet ﷺ had visited. The Prophet ﷺ rested here. Addas, radiallahu anhu, his story took place here, and he accepted Islam. Let's go inside and take a look real quick. The women and the men both are going in there together. Seems very crowded, but I'm going to take a look and see if we can just take a look inside briefly. Seems like there's a large group that just arrived here, a bus load of them, and they're all making their way in here. I'm going to see if we can just step in real quick. You see women and men. The entrance is very small. I don't recommend this type of setup due to the close proximity. And here we see men and women praying together, which is not permissible. Although I did want to pray, it seems very crowded. And we'll just take a look here and leave from here.